In life, folks, you can only trust 3 people: your doctor, your lawyer and your nana. And tonight, we've got our very own nana talking about doctors. And if she goes too far, folks, we might need a lawyer. Take it away, nana.
Well, listen, this is how I feel about it. Striking doctors are just plain greedy. I mean, come on. When have you ever said to your parents, you know that £10 pocket money that I have earned for doing pretty much, well, a bad job as your child? Well, that needs to go up by 35%. I mean, my parents would have just laughed in my face. I'm sorry, but junior doctors, but some of you aren't even that great at your job, let's be honest. Honestly, how many mistakes are these people making? They might argue that it's because they are overwhelmed, understaffed and underpaid. Well, join the club, so is everybody else. You knew the pay structure, that you get badly paid at first in exchange for a golden pension and higher earnings later on as you grow in experience. I mean, that's the job that you've chosen. In TV, right, most of us are lucky if we get a good job. The competition is high and the risk of not getting there is immense. I mean, one time, I was even an in-store demonstrator selling knives in High Wycombe. I remember this woman coming up to me and saying, "You're too good for this." And it was so humiliating, but I did what it took to get where I wanted to be. A pay rise, yes, but 35%? Are you on crack? Now, the consultants are the ones that I really can't get my head around, on a salary of over £100,000, and they want more because it hasn't gone up in line with inflation. Well, I think inflation is around about, what is it? Is it coming to 2% now? Honestly. We were told not to go to our GP if we could possibly help getting sick over Christmas, so just try and control when that happens. I mean, I'm disgusted with my GP. I had to fill in an online form just for a referral to go to a private, after they failed to give me the correct diagnosis and medication. All I wanted to do was go private and get out of their clutches. I said as much on the form, actually, is probably why. Instead, a week after I submitted the online form, they texted me on my phone on Friday afternoon to tell me I filled in the wrong form online, which, if that was the case, they would have known as soon as they saw it. I mean, I'm not done with them because they've wound up the wrong lady. I'll be holding them to account. Watch this space. But if it's happening to me, able-bodied and well, then just think about those who are much older, who are frail and really sick. The whole thing is a disgrace, and I say we pay a national insurance specifically for healthcare, and it goes into our own personal pot for private cover. It probably costs less, the doctors will be accountable, and strike, and you're fired. I'm fed up with people dying on waiting lists, which are getting longer. We've paid into this, but it's just not working. That's what I think.
Say what you really think, Nana.
Well, I didn't want to mince my words, you know what I mean? I mean, Benjamin, what do you think? Come on, I mean, 35%.
Condescending nonsense, Nana, that's what I think. I love it. These doctors, it is incredibly difficult to get a place on a medical course. You have to get A's and A stars. There's very few places in the first place. One thing that we should change, so there might be more doctors coming through the system. But they have had a pay cut, effectively, of 35% in the last 13 years. That's where that request comes from.
Exactly.
And the fact is that you say that even consultants that earn over 100 grand, they earn that much because they are exceptionally capable and they save huge numbers of lives. I am grateful for the doctors that have helped me when I've been sick, and I tell you what, it is a false economy, because you pointed out in your own argument that you moved jobs because you got a pay rise. Well, that's what's happening with doctors. They are leaving
jobs because I was selling knives in the middle of a supermarket. I was an in-store demonstrator.
Well, now your tongue is your knife, at least.
Well, it is, isn't it?
But look, the fact is they're moving to Australia in remarkable numbers, and countries like Canada, and then we have to pay more for freelance doctors who earn a fortune, and nurses, and also take them from other countries. That's a farcical way to do it.
I'm not saying that they shouldn't get a little bit more money. I do think consultants on 135 grand is plenty, but the point is 35% is madness, and I think that they've set up a bar that cannot be reached so they can carry on striking. I think it's more political than anything, and I think people are dying because of it. Who asks for 35% and expects to get it?
Well, they're all quite entitled middle-class snobs, aren't they? I think one of the main ringleaders of these strikes... One of the main ringleaders of these strikes, it was revealed, I'm not going to name him, but in August it was revealed that he had basically, during the first phase of strikes, waltzed off to a friend's wedding for a month on holiday to New Zealand. He also owned a flat in central London, mortgage-free, worth about 600 grand a year. And,
why is that relevant to anything?
Well, it is...
Because he's got... Because, I'll tell you why. Because the people, they are starving of treatments and operations. The NHS waiting list is now nearing 8 million. It's growing each day.
That's not the doctor's fault.
They are starving.
Well, it is partly because they're striking and making it worse.
They are starving those needy people, a lot of them poor, all while they go off and live high-class, middle-class
I just don't know what that's got to do with his personal wealth. Look, my point on this is actually about what is a fundamental issue. You speak about people going to Australia and to Canada who don't have a national health service
exactly, it's not the same
that we do. Why are we flogging this dead horse, which is NHS? Why don't we just copy what they do in Australia and what they do in Canada so that we have a better health service here?
Well, I don't know about Canada. It's pretty much the same, to be honest.
Well, you understand my point. Australia, Singapore, etc., where there is this, the European social insurance healthcare model as opposed to this taxpayer-funded NHS bucket of money, which just goes on and on and on.
But Darren, what do you think?
Well, I think what you were saying in your remarks there about it's people like Benjamin, basically, who are using the NHS as a way to bring down a Conservative government, and actually they're putting people's health at risk.
That's right.
They're putting lives at risk.
Why don't all these doctors that you don't show any respect to, why don't they all just go off to Australia? See how many people die and get
they are so wedded to the NHS.
Yeah, so wedded to the idea that they should be paid properly and that poor people should access healthcare without having a cost.
If it was a private system, then they would be paid better and they wouldn't be going on strike. So the problem is actually the structure of the NHS. It's not working. I mean, there's waiting lists with millions on. People are dying as they're waiting. It can't be right.
It's such a cult. You can't even remotely mention part privatisation. I mean, why should someone on 120 grand a year have the same access to the NHS as an elderly woman on pension credit? It shouldn't happen. There should be means tested. There should be wide reform. They should get rid of all these diversity and inclusion managers on 150 grand a year. All these middle managers. Reform the whole thing.
Your favourite, Wes Streeting, wants to reform the NHS. So what do you say about that?
Nobody says that they don't need to be reformed, but you're saying it should be privatised. I tell you what, if it's not your chosen Tory government's fault, then why is it that under the last Labour government you had a fraction of the waiting times, you had more doctors and nurses, and you had the highest ever approval rate?
Mass uncontrolled migration.
Tony Blair messed it up.
I'll tell you why. Because Tony Blair decided to open Britain's gates and allow the world to come in.
You've got people coming here to give birth from African countries, specifically to give birth because they know they're going to get a free flight.
Really? Yeah, they're health tourists. So we have a lot of... We spend a lot on health tourists. In other countries, if you did that in America, well, that wouldn't happen because they've got insurance. You'd have to have some sort of insurance.
There was a case a few weeks ago where some Nigerian... I think 2 Nigerian friends came to Manchester to give... or somewhere in the northwest, to give birth. They were in the country for a matter of hours and then they gave birth because it's free on the NHS. And arguably, the truth is,
you are more likely to be helped by a foreign-born doctor or nurse than you are to be behind them in the queue for the GP.
Which is a bad indictment to our health service because we should be training people in this country and investing in this country rather than actually raping those countries of their trained staff who could be working in those countries that probably need it more, and instead of doing that. So I think it's wrong.
Just to play devil's advocate, wouldn't a way to get people to do that would be to raise the wages of British people?
Oh, God forbid,
of course, yes, but not 35% is my point. That's ridiculous.
Right.